examiner.
I still don't understand what happened.
Well, it took us about an hour to get it sorted out. It seems a patient named Guernsey died last night in 806, but that information wasn't given to the night nurses. These things happen. At any rate, according to the Cardex, the patient Guernsey was down for 25 milligrams of sparing at Q6H, and Mrs. Reardon sent Nurse Perez to give him his 12 o'clock shot. In the meantime, it seems Dr. Schafer usurped that particular bed for his own purposes. Dr. Brubaker suggests it was for a love tryst, and some weight is given that hypothesis by the fact that Dr. Schafer was naked.
I get the drift, Mrs. Christie. In other words, Nurse Perez went in and sedated Dr. Schafer thinking he was the patient Guernsey. My God, what I don't understand.
May I finish, please, Doctor? After Perez gave him his shot, she noticed the IV was pinched off on the bed. So she reported this back to Mrs. Reardon, who then assigned Nurse Rivers to restart the IV. Now, Rivers was a float. She didn't even know the staff people on the floor. Nobody knew what the patient Guernsey looked like anyway, since he'd only been admitted that morning.
So she plugged an IV.
Yes.
How much?
A liter.
5% glucose solution won't kill anyone. Wasn't dehydrated, was he? Did he have any other ancillary conditions? Didn't anybody bother to go in and check on him during the night, even under the impression that he was merely a patient? Was he hyperasmolar? Did he have a bad heart? He must have had some sort of thrombosis. I want the post done here, Mr. Hitchcock. You and I had better have a little chat, Mrs. Christie, about your excessive use of float nurses.
I've got nearly 1,000 nurses in this
And every time one of them has her period, she disappears for 3 days. My doctors complain regularly they can't find the same nurse on the same floor 2 days in a row. Now, what in hell am I going to tell this boy Schafer's parents? That a substitute nurse assassinated him because she couldn't tell the doctors from the patients on the floor? My God!
All right, everyone. As you all know, that we had a death in our hospital today. Dr. Schafer has passed. He's no longer with us. This is a horrible event, and we want to make sure that it does not happen again. This incident will cost our hospital a lot of money. There are a lot of mistakes that can give us many different types of lawsuits, and we need to prevent this. So we need to state the facts so we can find out exactly what happened in this case, and we can go ahead and assess these facts through a series of qualitative and quantitative analysis today in this meeting. Okay, so what do we know? First thing we know is Guernsey died. We had a patient named Guernsey who died last night. And Dr. Schafer took it upon himself to go into this empty bed with a hematology nurse. Okay? Even though Schafer was engaging in this unethical activity where he should not have been, there was a series of other things that happened as well. So after a nurse, Dr. Perez, one of the nurses, she did go into the room and mistook Dr. Schafer as a patient and administered him with a shot that sedated him. Okay, that's the issue. Why she didn't know who he was is out of my reach right now. So after she sedated him, she noticed that the IV was pinched off on the side of the bed, and she went and reported this to the head nurse. When reporting this, the head nurse sent in a float nurse to administer the IV again to Dr. Schafer. Once she administered this IV to him, we have a dead doctor in our office. So those are the facts, and today we need to go ahead and analyze these facts and come up with solutions and recommendations so this will not happen again at this house.
Hey everybody, so we all know the terrible event that happened here. So what we're going to do, we need to organize the events that went wrong surrounding this sentinel event. And I'm going to take suggestions from you all of what you all think went wrong, and we're going to organize it into an affinity diagram. So anybody have any suggestions?
Well, the nurses do not understand the discharge process for when a patient dies.
Okay. Discharge process. Anything else?
Well, also, there's no system to identify the patients to the staff.
Okay. Y'all can keep going. I'm just writing them down.
Okay. Okay. Well, the ethical conduct in the hospital is horrible. Like, why was Dr. Schafer even having relations with this hematology nurse?
Right. Okay.
And it's too many staff on the floor. Too many float
float nurses.
Too many.
Yeah.
Like, how are the patient's supposed to know their nurse if you always have a different nurse coming in every day?
Exactly. Okay.
The nurses did not verify the patient identity
Okay.
before any medicine was given.
So really, these nurses, they need some training. Didn't identify.
At least again.
Yeah. Okay.
Also, the nurses don't communicate with each other.
Okay. Sorry, my handwriting. Okay.
And the nurses didn't communicate with the patient either.
I can go in here.
So it'd be like communication with each other and with patients.
Yeah. Also, there was no witness for the administering of the IV. She just administered it without anyone there.
Was that it?
It's okay.
And so far, the nurses did not verify the patient's identity.
And someone wants to go into here?
The nurses didn't administer the IV properly. There was no witnesses.
Is that two or just one?
It's together.
Okay. No witnesses. It's okay. Okay. This next column, what's
The nurses do not communicate with each other.
What about with the patients? Is that one too?
Yes, that's another one.
Yeah, the nurses do not communicate with the patient as well.
The nurses did not communicate medication being given.
Is that it for this column?
Yes.
Okay. And last one was
Ethical conduct.
okay. That's the problem.
It was too many float nurses.
And no system to identify the patients or staff.
The problems groups. How we gonna categorize these?
Well, the first section could be called training. All that could go under training as far as the nurses.
Second one.
The second one we can call that communication. And the last one can be internal affairs. Now we're gonna do a cause and effect diagram, and basically this is the ending result. The doctor dies. So what we're trying to do is try to figure out everything that caused this and see what the situation was. So what do you guys feel like goes under the environment section?
It was too many float nurses on floor.
Most definitely. Anything else?
It also caused for, with too many float nurses, it caused for the environment to be overcrowded.
Way too many people on one floor. Okay. Now, under the procedures part, what we got?
The nurses didn't communicate the death of the patient with each other.
Anything else?
The patient files was unorganized as far as knowing whether the patient died or not. It was, the files was unorganized.
Okay. For people, we have
Nurses be calling out too often. So then that leaves with being understaffed.
Which caused for so many float nurses. Also, the nurses did not know the patients. Nurses didn't know the patient. They also didn't know the staff. The nurses didn't know the staff. They didn't know that Dr. Schafer was a doctor and not a patient.
So for ethics.
Dr. Schafer, he shouldn't have been having relations at work between him and the nurse.
One more?
They also shouldn't have relations within the patient's bed.
Okay. Now, okay, so all of the things that you guys stated, I guess, did cause the doctor to die, because if they didn't have all of these nurses and being overcrowded, the doctor possibly wouldn't have died, and people would have caught that, you know, it was a mistake and that was Dr. Schafer in the bed. There's no communication. They don't know each other. They need to sit, take time to get to know each other. That definitely wouldn't have caused the doctor to die. That still piggybacks off of the nurses not knowing their patients, not knowing the staff members, and also get to the bottom of why the nurses are calling out as much as they are. And with ethics, the employee relations are at work. So at that point, we just need to get down to the bottom as to why or what procedures do we have with staff members having relations with each other.
Throughout the meeting, we have been jotting down different things, so I have came up with the process flow chart. First, the patient dies. The doctor called the nurse to have relations in the bed with her. At 12 o'clock, the patient was supposed to get a shot. The nurse Perez noticed the IV that was pinched off the side of the bed and reported it to the nurse, the head nurse. The nurse Perez gave the doctor a shot which sedated him. The head nurse sent a float nurse until they re-administer the IV to the patient. Well, basically, the doctor instead. Then the nurse gives 1 liter of glucose to the doctor instead of the patient, and the doctor dies. So I'm gonna go back to this one. After the 12 o'clock shot, what do you guys recommend that should have been in place of that shot?
Well, I think that the nurse, there should have been some type of system put into place for the nurse to identify the patient, to make sure that it was the correct patient that they was giving the IV shot to. That could have been something that could have been put into place.
Okay. Okay, and after this one, the nurse Perez noticed the IV was pinched off the side of the bed and reported it to the head nurse. What do you guys think about that one?
After the nurse noticed that it was pinched off the side of the bed and she reported it, the head nurse could have went to go take a look at it instead of just sending another nurse to put it back. If the patient was asleep or sedated, then the IV probably shouldn't have been given to the patient.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so basically the head nurse should have checked on the patient instead of
just sending someone to go put the IV back. Someone should have figured out what was wrong, why it was pinched off in the first place.
Okay. All right. Well, this is the flow chart that what I have come up with, and that's it.
Okay, so since the death of Dr. Schafer, what I have come up with is a patient protocol system. And this system will be put into place for all the nurses and doctors for the hospital. So first, every patient that comes into the hospital should receive a wristband. This wristband should contain the patient name, date of birth, and their medical number to identify them. When a patient dies, the death should be pronounced by a nurse supervisor of that day that is on shift or a physician. After the patient death, all medical records of that patient should be erased or deleted from our system. There should be no record of that patient after the death. A series of check questions should be asked to the patient before any medicine is administered. Before any nurse or doctor is giving medicine to a patient, they should ask that patient either their name, their date of birth, or their medical number to make sure that that is the correct patient that they're giving the medicine to. Before administering any medicine, a nurse should have a witness, another nurse, or a doctor present to make sure that the right amount of medicine is given to the correct patient. No medicine should be given to no patient without the patient acknowledgement. You cannot give no medicine to no patient without them being aware of what they're giving or without them being awoke at that time. Nurse must tell the patient what they are giving them. That way the patient could either refuse the medicine or accept the medicine. And also the nurses from now on are going to go through a training every 6 months just to reiterate these protocols, just to make sure that they stay refreshed in their head so that this incident from now on should not happen. We should not have no more accidents of deaths within a hospital with this system being put into place.